0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Phixated Podcast. I am your host, Mike Azzolina, and I am joined by a guy who just celebrated his 10th wedding anniversary. Regs, happy belated anniversary, my friend.
Same to you, buddy. It's easy.
I mean, we're 9, you're 10.
I know, but you're like, it helps that you're the day before ours, because I always can remember when your guys is. All the other guys, I have to like put it in my phone and remember to text them. But thank you very much. 10 years, a couple houses, 3 kids, who's counting?
I gotta tell you, I still remember very vividly your wedding.
Wow.
One, because it was at the Franklin Institute, and it was awesome because Ben Franklin just like overlooked us the whole night. 2, you had this like sick band playing live at your wedding. And 3, your brother with the McDonald's hat on his head.
With the buckets.
During his best man speech. Very vividly remember that evening.
I appreciate that very much. We went back and watched the wedding video. So all of those things are in there. For some context for the people out there who may not have attended the wedding, I went through a phase when I was about 3 years old that I would not go anywhere inside or outside of the house without a McDonald's Halloween bucket strapped to my head. And to any of you out there who know my mother, you can understand how much she would have not been happy with that. So in private, in public, didn't go anywhere for a whole year without this bucket attached to my head. So my brother very cleverly found the buckets on Amazon and pulled a couple of them out during his best man speech, which was very funny. Dude, it was good stuff.
It's still one of my absolute favorite best man speeches. I was dying. So good.
It was good.
It was so good.
The fact that he could find them was incredible.
How about it? Because I remember those things.
Oh, yeah.
I remember this. It's, ironically, Regs, our wedding, remember they brought the chicken nuggets in?
I do.
In the middle of the wedding, they
do.
stopped everything and brought in the chicken nuggets.
Of course.
Yeah, we both had that McDonald's connection at our wedding.
There you go.
I love that for us, man. And now for those listening, throughout the course of the weekend, I guess, closer to the weekend, Andrea sends me a text at one point on Thursday morning. Make sure you text Regs. I said, been there, done that. I already did it. I already wished him happy anniversary. But our wives started texting Regs. Did they not?
They did. It was literally at dinner. Well, Ange and I have a tradition where we go to a very nice steakhouse in the city here in Baltimore for our wedding anniversary. So we were at dinner, and you get texts throughout the day and the night from everyone who was thinking of you. So your wife very graciously texted the both of us saying, happy anniversary, all that stuff. And then it was a Thursday. So usually we would have, we would record our episode, but of course you were very generous to let me have the night off. And then, so my wife's thing is it tickles her to death that we call this thing Birdies and Beer Podcast. And every time she walks in the room and I'm like getting, the whole setup going, the recording, everything else, she's always like, live from Birdies and Beer Bongs. It's her funniest thing to say. She cracks herself up. And so one night it says, she's looking at me because I'm getting it set up again. And I'm sure the kids have been something else that day. So she's like, you should let me and Andrea get on this and record what we have to deal with while you two are doing this thing. And I was like, that would be great. I'm sure it would get a bunch of downloads. And then, of course, Angela texts Andrea back, hey, we can do, and again, this tickles her pink. She calls it Birdies and Beer Babes. We should do that, an anniversary edition, and talk about what we have to deal with myself and Azzy. And I told her that she should tell Andrea that would get way more downloads and views than any of our podcasts. Purely off the title alone, I think. I think the YouTube algorithm would eat that up.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I listen, I don't doubt that they'd get more listens for people simply just to make fun of us.
Oh, of course.
As we, as they would be able to tell many people what it's like to have to survive a night in a house with the two of us watching sports, or just the ins and outs of a conversation. I think the fourth inning today during the Phillies game, Andrea had enough of of my attitude.
We were driving, we were in the car, so Angela avoided that today.
She'd had enough of my attitude, I think, at that point, which is fair because I can understand that.
So you never know. Just be glued to your podcast feed, because you don't know if a wives edition might pop up just randomly one of these weeks.
I mean, it could. I would not be opposed to allowing it to happen.
I think. See, here's the thing. I think they would want to do it without us.
You?
Yeah. I mean, my wife would. She would jump. She wants to just jump right on and just get into it.
I mean, Riggs, I think I'd be willing to let them do it without us, wouldn't you?
Why not?
I mean, I feel like it could be really funny.
I feel like it could too. The thing is, what we should do is let them do it, and then we should record our reaction afterwards
to watching it.
Yep. So then you and I can listen to it back, and then record a podcast of our reactions to the different stories and things like that.
I mean, I think I can get behind that, man.
It'll be a double episode week. First part will be them recording. The second part will be our reaction to their recording.
I think I can get behind that.
Listen, man.
I think we do it.
We'll figure it out. We'll get it done.
Okay.
Let us know on the Facebook page, in the comments.
Exactly.
Let us know, people.
If you want it, we'll get Andrea and Andrew on here.
We'll make it happen.
It's dangerous. It's a risk, but I'm willing to take it.
It is a risk, but listen, it's all for the cause.
I'm willing to take that risk. Regs, we got some Philly sports to talk about, or
we do. We let some things happen throughout the rest of the week. Apologies for this not coming out on the usual Thursday, but we'll get it to you before the week is over.
Yeah, I think again, certainly we're going to live the lives that we're supposed to live. And your anniversary will take precedence over the weekend Washington Nationals series and the Eagles, or I'm sorry, the Mets series and the Eagles post preseason. So I think we're good, Regs. I think we're good, but we can at least recap those two things.
We sure can.
So let's start with the Birds. I know that you were away at the Shore when they played. So just a couple of highlights and things to sort of, I think, focus on after your first week of the preseason. Before the game, Sirianni talked a lot about we're going to let our starters play 1 or 2 series, and I think, Regs, that he saw enough after one possession for 2 reasons. One, the offense looked really good. It looked really, really good. Secondly, I don't think he was super thrilled with his number 1 quarterback taking a shot that he took
3 yards out of bounds.
3 yards out of bounds. So there were kind of 2 things there, and let's just start with Jalen Hurts.
All right.
Jalen Hurts was 6 for 6 on Friday. And I got to tell you, he used the middle of the field. And I know it's vanilla defenses right now. You're not going to see everything. And I also know it was the Jets version of vanilla defense. So I don't know how much that says about, what we saw. But I will say this, him using the middle of the field, him moving up and down the field without using A.J. Brown are big deals, because all we've heard about in camp is, well, he's really leaning on A.J. Brown. He's using A.J. Brown a lot. Well, the first possession, on the first play of the game, he rolls right, throws to Quez Watkins for like a 24-yard gain. Hit Dallas Goedert twice on that possession, 1 for 6 and then 1 for the touchdown. And I think there was a screen in there too that they ran to Miles that went for quite a bit. So I was thrilled for a couple of reasons. One, he didn't seem to be dancing. Two, he continues to throw really well in the run. Three, he used the middle of the field. And four, we didn't even see AJ Brown. I thought we were going to take a shot like they did with T.O. in his first preseason game. And he didn't take a shot. He was almost non-existent in the offense. So Jalen, to me, this was a great first showing. Plenty of confidence in what they saw from him. But when he got hit going out of bounds, Regs, I was like, okay, probably,
let's
probably
time to
let's
pull the plug.
But credit him, and I think, you know, it goes to kind of what we've talked about with him. The players really believe in him. Dude popped right up. He took a blow and he popped right up.
The replay was not good. Like when they slowed it down, my first reaction was like, ooh, like that didn't feel good. And then the slow motion replay was like, how did he get up so fast?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then third, it was Jordan Mailata might stomp everyone's heads, which I love.
Yeah. I said to my brother tonight, actually, I think in a regular season game, we just chalk that up to, oh, it's a late hit out of bounds. But because it was the first drive of the preseason and he had given himself up clearly, like, dude, what are you doing?
Come on.
He's lucky that wasn't on the Eagles sideline because there would have been more than just Jordan Mailata standing there.
That's Bush League
That's
stuff.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that you would have seen Jordan Davis standing there too.
There would have been a few guys.
There would have been a couple. But yeah, credit Jordan Mailata, who just, you know how I feel about the guy, but to be standing right there, right in his face as soon as it happened. I think, you know, that guy continues to show why, you know, he's what I consider to be one of the better tackles in the game, because a lot of times that kind of comes along with being a blindside tackle is you're going to protect that guy no matter what. Right. Remember Jason Peters getting up and getting ejected from the game?
That's literally what I was going to bring up, is I said very reminiscent of the Jason Peters video from back in the day against Washington, I believe. Yeah. So again, Jason Peters, a guy we never doubted,
right?
In, you know, his commitment to his team and his line and his quarterback. So not that I think we had any different thoughts about Mailata, but you might have expected Kelsey or Lane Johnson or, you know, a more veteran guy. I know Mailata's been around for a while. And this isn't to say that, you know, we expected them to be over there, but for Mailata to be the first guy over there and not be afraid to literally jump into that bench if he had to as the only guy is good. It speaks to the team chemistry. It speaks to what they think about Hurts. Like, if listen, we could speculate this will be wild speculation, but if Carson Wentz was here in his 5th year, do we think Mailata sprints over to the sideline, or maybe just more casually walks over and it's like, hey, don't do that. Stop it.
Yeah. If he's still here, we're probably having a very different conversation about Carson Wentz. But you brought up Kelsey. He wasn't actually playing in this.
That's right. This was not to speak to that they wouldn't have done it. I'm
for
sure he would have been over there, but
we're hoping he's ready. I didn't realize he had elbow surgery.
Yeah.
They cleaned out the elbow that had bothered him throughout last year, so he didn't play. He was on the bench. So he looked fine.
Yeah, it speaks to Mailata knowing he's the leader out there.
Now, while we're talking a lot about Jordan Mailata and how he jumped in, but Nick Sirianni's reaction. Can we just stop for a moment to appreciate Nick Sirianni's reaction to that play specifically? I know we're getting, folks, I know we're getting caught in this one play, but there's a lot to be said about this specific play. There's the Jalen Hurts portion of it. That's the dude just bounced back up like nothing happened and went back to the huddle like nothing happened. And trust me, if you watched it, you know something happened. Yeah. There's the Jordan Mailata piece of like, this dude is for real and he's not going to let people do that to his teammates. And that's fantastic. And then there's the head coach on the other sideline just losing his ever loving mind.
And not like
Regs, I don't know that I've ever seen an Eagles head coach go that berserk on the sideline.
And also not going after the ref or a referee specifically calling out the opposing team's head coach.
Yeah, Saleh, that's effing bullshit.
Right. Screaming across the field. Not at the, like, whatever ref it was, like, how dare you let that happen? Like, he should be ejected. He's like, I'm not, screw that. I'm going after the dude on the other sideline.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I will credit Robert Saleh. After the game, they asked him about it. Well, thought we were going to lose it there for a second. I thought
so too.
After the game, they asked him about it, and he keeps happening.
For those watching the YouTube video, you're having a much better time than the audio listeners.
Yeah, the light is flickering on us, audio listeners. We're going to turn it off.
That lasted 3 minutes.
I mean, not bad though. Better than normal. Saleh said after the game, like, they were going to be addressing it because it was totally uncalled for. So good for him, because, you know, he could have blown off the question. It's football, that sort of thing. But I think, you know, knowing what we know about Saleh after a couple of years, because the Eagles were very interested in him, he was not pleased about that. So good on him. But credit Nick Sirianni, man. Like, the guy just continues. I mean, the t-shirt game is one thing. You can talk about the t-shirts. Today he had a Trotter shirt on, which was fantastic. But we could go days and days about, like, the corniness that this guy has been criticized for. But the respect that he deserves for just losing his ever-loving mind. And I'll tell you what, Regs, I think if they would have met at the 50-yard line, he still would have been losing his mind.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have backed down.
No, I don't think so.
Good for him.
Because it is garbage. It's the first preseason game, and you're hitting a starting quarterback 3 steps out of bounds. It wasn't one of those, like, 50-50 plays where the dude's already in the air when the quarterback decides to go out of bounds, and he's kind of hit as he's stepping over the line. Jalen Hurts had taken 2 steps, like, literally out of bounds before this guy launched himself in the air towards his chin. Yeah. Like, it's not like he hit him in the side or the shoulders or in the hip. He hit him in the chin. So it's like all those factors have to be taken into account, right, when you're watching a reaction like that and everything that happened. So aside from Hurts in the first possession, I think offensive. Can I ask you a question before we move forward? Because I didn't catch a lot of it, so I want to get your opinions on this for anyone else who maybe didn't catch every single play.
Absolutely.
You started by saying he wasn't dancing, and that, you know, perks my antennas up. Because it's one of the really big things that I know we've talked about wanting to see an improvement from Hurts on. So how did you feel of him, like his pocket presence and going through his reads and things like that?
Yeah, I think, again,
knowing it's the first series of the preseason.
Yeah, and I mean, the first play of the game, there was pressure. Opeta got, like, run over, and there was a guy in his face immediately. So he did contain and roll out and throw on the run. Other than that, though, again, I'd have to watch tape to see what his reads were, if he had to progress at all.
Yeah.
It looked like the play that was the touchdown throw. He had 2 reads. They lined up Puff Nose. They lined up both AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert on the left side, and both of them. Or Goddard came across the field, I believe. And A.J. Brown kind of broke a little post into the end zone. And you could see that he had to read which guy was going to come open there. And it looked like the corner dropped off of, the safety dropped off of Goddard and floated to Brown, and he hit Goddard. Yeah. So I don't know what the read necessarily was there. I'd have to watch the replay, but it was good to see him make the right choice on that play for sure. Yeah. He had time. There was a lot of time after that first play, so he didn't have to do a whole lot of dancing. Okay. But again, I think 6 for 6 is pretty telling. The balls were all accurate. He was on the money with everything. Nothing was behind anybody. So I think those are all good signs, and the ball to Goddard was at least 15 to 20 yards in the air.
That was going to be my second question with, you know.
And the one to Watkins was 24 yards in the air. He caught it and went out of bounds. So those are really positive signs for him. And once he left the game, I mean, we didn't see a whole lot. There were a couple of plays from Minshew to Pascal that were, you can see that Zach Pascal is going to be, he's going to be good. It's going to be fun to watch as your fourth receiver. You get those four on the field at the same time, and that's going to be really difficult for teams to cover with Goddard, Sanders, Scott, Gainwell, like that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But yeah, I think I'd have to go back and watch, and I don't know what the playing time split is going to be this coming week. I don't know what they're going to do with that, so it'll be interesting. We'll have to keep a close eye on what Sirianni says throughout the week. So I hate to kind of skirt the question, but from the naked eye, from the naked eye, it looked like everything went as well as it could possibly go in his first preseason game of the year. So
that's good.
But we'll keep a closer eye next week and see where he lands with that. So one of my favorite stories of camp, Rags, and it's a small microscopic story, but we're going to talk about both guys. At the open practice last Sunday night, there was a clip taken of Jordan Davis just having his way with Cam Jurgens. Yeah. You seen that?
Yeah.
We've seen it in reverse. We've seen it forward. But did you hear Jordan Davis's comments about that?
No, I did not.
Okay, so I don't think I really knew a lot about Jordan Davis's personality. He looks like a fun-loving dude, but we haven't seen or heard a whole lot from him. But they asked him in a interview the next day about it, and I loved what he said, and I think it shows his character because he said, "Look, you saw that one clip, but you haven't seen the amount of times that he's gotten me in practice. He's gotten me a bunch too. So like, you got two rookies." Both top three rounds, right? You got your first round pick and your third round pick. Actually, your second round pick. I apologize. Jurgens was their second round pick. And I was so impressed with the way he handled that question. And I think we saw what he meant on Friday night. I know. We talked a little bit before the show, but man, Cam Jurgens was fun to watch. Oh my gosh, Regs, that boy is athletic.
Yeah.
He is an athlete.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I mean, we talk a lot about Jason Kelce and the things that Jason Kelce can do on the field, and what he brings to an offense. If Cam Jurgens figures out the stuff that Kelce does that's kind of under the radar, not obvious to the casual fan, calling out the plays of the line, calling out the coverages, calling out linebacker coverages, things like that. If Jurgens gets to that point, honestly, I don't know enough about him to know whether or not where he's at with that. But the pure athleticism that this kid shows, it is okay. Now, please understand, people who are listening, I am not saying that he is already Jason Kelce. That's not what I'm about to say. What I am going to say is we saw athleticism that could lead to what we see from Jason Kelce right now.
Yeah.
His ability to get out on screens. He was at like the third level on some plays, like the third level. And that's just pure, like that's athleticism mixed with, the IQ.
There were plays where I think it shows that Jason Kelce has been such like a revelation, that they obviously looked for a similar type of athlete.
Yeah.
At that
he
position,
looked with them,
hoping that, like you said, Kelce can teach him all that other stuff. That you start, you can't make someone more athletic. Mm-hmm. So you have to start there and then work your way with all the other things. Of course, like you said, we're not saying that he will become Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce is a Hall of Fame center who is unbelievable, and not everyone is going to live up to that same level of play. But if you're starting with the same type of athleticism, then you're able to, if something were to happen to Kelce when I'm knocking on my wooden desk, just to make sure that I don't put anything into the universe. But Cam would be able to then step in, and you wouldn't have to change your offense accordingly, because he can't make the same plays. He can't make the same something in my throat. He can't make the same types of, like you said, get into the second or third level on these, on these pull-out blocks and things like that. So I think it's good.
I mean, he was like, when he would get, and he was playing against their first string guys, because he stayed in the game after the first possession. And I was so impressed on, those, those outside zone runs where, he would pull and you'd almost lose him for a second, but then he'd break off of his first block and he'd be on the second guy, or he's blocking two. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this kid's a rookie. Yeah, I know it's a preseason game. I get it. But he's doing this against a first string defense. And I was really impressed with Cam Jurgens. The other side of that is the Jordan Davis side of it. And boy, did we see everything that that was advertised to us, man. Oh man, this boy is at one point,
he's a mountain.
At one point, and there's pictures of this on Twitter. He had 4 guys blocking him. 4 of the Jets starters blocking him. And another time there were 3.
And as an Eagles fan, you should just lean back in your chair and hold your hands to the heavens.
And that was happening without their starters on the field. They weren't doing that was when they had pulled their first team defense, because Kaiser White had the interception.
Yep.
And I think again, Sirianni was like, okay, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
We're good. So I think I really, really enjoyed watching that part of the game. And then there was the play that Zach Wilson got hurt on, with Jordan Davis chasing him from behind and keeping up with him, not losing.
Yeah, right.
Not losing ground on him, but actually keeping up with a pretty mobile quarterback. So I think we're going to be looking. I mean, and then there were times he just plowed guys into the backfield. And we saw a little bit of that from Nakobe Dean too. There were a couple times where he just looked slower and he looked small. Nakobe Dean. He does not look big on the field. But there was a play where, Jordan Davis kind of, he pushed back into the interior offensive lineman, and it was a run play, and the guy tried to cut back, and Dean was waiting there. There was another play where Dean ran up and took on a blocker, and the blocker got knocked back into the running back, and the running back fell for a loss. So you can kind of, and that was against their first team offense. So you can kind of see already the impact that these 2 rookies are going to have. I mean, Jordan Davis, like you say, he's a mountain. He's an absolute mountain. So when you get him lined up with the big names who we didn't really see the other night, it's going to be certainly fun to watch.
It's the same thing we talked about offensively. You can't double team everybody. You can't put 2 blockers on everyone on the defensive line, and they have enough talent now spread out across the entire line that there's always going to be a mismatch somewhere.
Right.
And if they can just take advantage of that 50% of the time. And we talked about at the beginning of last season, you thought the D line was going to have this certain number of sacks or be top 3 in the NFL with sacks. And I think they were terrible at sacking the quarterback.
Yeah.
But this, with a group of players that from left to right, you look at and you're like, well, we can't double team everyone. And everyone is now capable of winning those one-on-one matchups when they get put in that position. So if we can make those plays 50% of the time, it's going to be just a world of difference from last year. There's a couple of things with this defense and the way they lined up. They did a bunch of different things. They did a couple times with 3 down linemen with a hanging standing edge. They did that a few times. They did a regular 3-4. A couple times they lined up with 4 guys down. So they did a bunch of different things with their front. But in the past, we've seen Fletcher Cox eat that double team, right? We've watched that for years. And now teams are going to have to decide, okay, are we going to do it with Jordan Davis or are we going to do it with Fletcher Cox? What about Hargrave? Oh, what about Milton Williams and Josh Sweat? And Brandon Graham looked like he never got hurt. Like the guy, like the first play of the game, it feels like every year Brandon Graham makes the first tackle of the season. And he did it again. Like he got a tackle for a loss on the run to start the game. And I was like, there he is. Just back to normal, BG being BG. But you're right. Teams are gonna have to pick their poison. And I think the other thing that we have witnessed over the course of time here is, the opposite side of Darius Slay is always like that weak piece. Yeah.
And what we've heard about in camp is that, he hasn't even been the best corner. Like he hasn't even been the guy. Bradbury's been the guy.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of coverage sacks, and the front has always been good against the run. It just got better with Jordan Davis standing there.
Yeah.
So if you get teams in second and long, third and long, and you get leads, you're going to be able to pin your ears back. And we saw what this team can do when they pin their ears back. And that was before Jordan Davis, and that was before Hassan Reddick, and that was without Brandon Graham. So now that you have these guys, and if you get out to leads and you get into second and longs and third and longs with the coverage that you have with those two corners, not to mention Avonte Maddox, like you're going to be able to pin your ears back and go get them. And with your linebackers, I mean, TJ Edwards looks great. Kaiser White had the interception. We talk about Nakobe Dean and looking forward to what he can do. And I just think they're so much deeper all across the field, with the exception of safety. There's just so much depth this year. I don't know, man. It's scary to be this excited about them. I'm having a hard time with it, and I know classic Philly fans. They lost the preseason game. People are losing their minds. How many guys did you know on the field at the end of the game? Like I know Reed Stinnett. Like I know who that is. Okay. Like I know that guy, but there were plenty of guys on that field that I had no idea who they were. So I'll be excited, man. I'll be, it's going to be fun. Hey, guess who, I don't know if you're going to remember this before we switch gears into the Phillies. Guess who led the Eagles in tackles on Friday night?
I have no idea.
All right, listen, I'm just going to take a moment to celebrate all the way back to our pre-draft, when I told you about a guy that I would love to see them either take in a late round or take an undrafted free agency. Do you remember the name Reed Blankenship from that show? He led the team in tackles on Friday.
See, people, this is why you listen to this show.
I don't know if he's going to make the team. I really don't.
That's okay.
But that's a really good start. I don't know how he is on special teams.
Right.
He might be able to make it as a special teamer. But that's a darn good start for him to be able to do that. Josh Jobe got most of the reps once the stars came off the field at corner. And my boy Britton Covey, that I love, the little wide receiver out of Utah, sounds like he tore some ligaments in his hand on a Stinnett pass. But I thought I saw today, and I'd have to look back, I'm pretty sure I saw him fielding punts today at practice. So
okay.
I don't know if it was bad enough. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out what that's about. But I can't imagine he could field punts with torn ligaments.
You wouldn't think so.
No. But look, we'll have more to talk about with the Eagles here in the coming weeks. Obviously, we probably won't have a ton to talk about with them next week because their game isn't until Friday, I believe. And if not, it would be Thursday, and I don't know that we'll be talking about them while we're on the air. But I definitely encouraging first run of games, for sure. Now, like I said, we'll be focusing a lot there in the coming weeks. They open on September 11th, I believe, is their first game. I'm just going to double check that. And I believe it's in Detroit. So, yes, they play Detroit at 1:00. I will be coming home from South Bend that day.
There you
so
go.
I'll probably gonna have to turn my phone off and DVR it, because I'm not going to want to miss the first game of the season, Regs. You know how I do with that. I don't do well with that.
I do know how you do with that.
So, and hopefully at that point, we're still sniffing playoffs with the Phils, man. That's what we really gotta hope for. So, Regs, let me ask you this. Let's take all context out of what we just watched this weekend. If I were to tell you when we last spoke that the Phillies would be 7-3 tonight in their last 10, what would you have said?
I'll take it.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You would have taken it. And here's why you would probably taken it looking at it that way. A 4-game series with Washington, you probably would have said they're going to lose one just by default because it's hard to sweep a 4-game series.
Yes.
They'll win 2 out of 3 against the Marlins. Then that would mean they would have won 2 out of 3 against the Mets. And you'd feel pretty good about that. They were 6-1 going into New York this weekend. 1 on Friday night, got to 7-1. Everybody's feeling good. They outlasted the Scherzer effort. Ranger Suarez was unbelievable. And he has been unbelievable. Let me just real quickly, since coming back from the IL, 28 in the third innings, 4 earned runs, 25 strikeouts.
Yeah.
He's been incredible since coming back. And that's a good lineup in New York. So good for him. They get that win. It turns out that would be the only 2 runs they'd score this weekend.
Listen, I think we have to be very happy that they took care of business against the Nationals. We have to be very happy that we beat Alcantara. Like, we literally beat him. We didn't just wait till the bullpen got in there. We beat Sandy Alcantara.
Yep. For the 3rd time.
That's right. And that's where you have to bring this context in, because when you look at who the pitchers were, 3 of the last 4 games that the Phillies have played, they've literally faced 3 of the best 5 pitchers in the entire National League.
I'd argue they're the best 3 pitchers in the National League.
I think you could, and you could win an argument.
Yeah.
Say what you will about Jacob deGrom coming back from an injury. That guy
he's unreal.
Is unreal.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer, I hate him, but he continues to pitch unbelievably well against the Phillies.
Against everybody. He's just good.
He is very good. And Alcantara, we've never beaten him prior to this year.
Yeah,
I don't think since
and he just
remember.
gets better and better and better and better. Yeah.
So when you look at those 3 games, you would assume, I think any reasonable person would say, we are going to lose all 3 of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you could make quite an argument based on where this offense is, and especially the first 2 Mets games without Kyle Schwarber in them.
All 3.
He played against Alcantara, didn't he?
Oh, I thought you meant all 3 Met games.
No, I meant
sorry.
I meant the first 2 Mets
right.
games, but all 3 of those pitchers.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
So if you were to say that we're going to face Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom without Kyle Schwarber, you would, I think any reasonable person, even a diehard Phillies fan, as you and I are, would say we're probably going to lose those 2 games. And we'll take our chances in the series finale against whatever pitcher the Mets are throwing out there. I know that we didn't technically beat Scherzer, but we won that game. We beat Sandy Alcantara. And here's what I'll take away from the Jacob deGrom game. Aaron Nola pitched his ass off in a hostile environment against a Cy Young winning pitcher. And like, that was a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
That was Nola running out in game 2 of a playoff series away and pitching 8 innings of 1-run baseball. And I'll take that. Every day and Sunday, I'll take that. The Wheeler loss is an unfortunate one. I hate when we lose Wheeler starts, especially when the opposing pitcher is not one of those 3 guys that we just talked about.
Yeah.
So that one hurts. But I will take a win against Scherzer, a 1-run game against Jacob deGrom, and I'll be a little upset about the 3rd game against the Mets.
And not to mention they faced Diaz twice in this series. And they had him on the ropes last night.
Yep.
They had 2nd and 3rd. The go-ahead run was on second base for Castellanos. So, they had the chance there.
Yep.
So they were breathing, but I think, Regs, what's tough to swallow is they've scored 1 run in the last 4 games in regulation. What I mean by that is they got a run with the zombie runner on Friday night, but they were shut out on Thursday. Scored 2, 1 being the zombie runner in the 10th. Got shut out on Saturday, shut out on Sunday. 1 run in regulation this weekend, 36 strikeouts this weekend against the Mets, 2 for 21 with runners in scoring position, and left 26 guys on base this weekend.
So let's hear your opinion about that because I have some thoughts.
So I think, let me just say this real quickly, because this I think is the part that gets to me the most. They've played so well against every playoff contender in the National League. we've talked about. They've won the season series against literally everybody else in the playoff hunt, and they're tied with the Braves. They are 4-11 against the New York Mets.
Yeah.
0-5 in the series against the Mets this year. It just continues to be their nightmare. And on paper, the Mets are not that much better than the Phillies. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not that much better than the Phillies on paper. They just do things better when it comes down to the actual game. Like today, they scored when they had runners, when they had the opportunities.
With
the
2
Phillies
outs.
did not.
Right.
They just outlasted Phillies pitching this weekend. Here's what I will say about the offense. And I remember this being the case with some of the teams during the run. When you see a stretch of pitchers that the Phillies just saw, they can cause a collective slump.
Yeah.
That is not unheard of. It is not out of the extreme ordinary to say that even when you face one of them, you can go into a sort of a funk. I remember, and this was a knuckleballer, a little bit different. But when the Phillies faced R.A. Dickey when he was a Met, they'd go weeks without hitting because it would just screw them up so much.
Right.
But sometimes you face a guy, or in this case, 3 straight guys, and it's really hard to find your way out of that. Now they're going to have to do it quickly because they're going to turn right around. They have 3 games in Cincinnati this week, and they're going to go right back to New York. And I don't know how it lines up. I'd have to look at New York's rotation, but there's a pretty darn good chance they're going to see DeGrom and Scherzer again next weekend. They might miss one of them. They might miss one of them, which would be a blessing, especially with it being a doubleheader. There's a good chance. Actually, they could end up missing both of them if things fall right. I'll have to look at the lineups here. While you're talking, I'll take a look at that. But I don't know if that's what you were thinking. But before you explain a little bit more, I just want to say, like, I agree with you in the sense that the first 2 games felt competitive. They felt good.
Yeah.
Like I left even last night. I was a little frustrated that they lost, but like Regs, I still felt okay because they battled DeGrom. They didn't hit well. I get that, but they did hit Scherzer. I think they had like 11 hits.
Yeah, they did.
They just couldn't cash in. DeGrom is ridiculous. He does this to everybody. What did I see the other, like, I'd have to look, something about strikeouts, and I don't know. It's insane though.
Yeah.
And then today with Chris Bassett, this guy must be incredibly frustrating to hit against because he takes forever to throw.
Isn't there supposed to be a clock?
Well, there's not, but he would be terrible with it. Like, there are things, Regs, that I would recognize that I'm really bad at in life in general. This guy must be a pain to be behind in the grocery store because I bet you he loads his freaking groceries like one at a time. He probably lines it up so that the cashier can see the barcode. Like, he probably puts everything in Regs, I wanted to throw my remote through the television watching this guy pitch. I would call time all day on this guy. All day. It is absolutely insane. But today, Regs brought me back to April, May with the Phillies. It was just ugly. And the offense aside, everything just fell out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this. With Topper, these times have not lasted long. Right. Remember, they get swept by Chicago at home. They come back and win 7 in a row. Yep. And they win 13 out of 14. They still went 7-3 this week. They have a Cincinnati team who's just really bad. Mm-hmm. I told you before I looked at their starters, I don't really know that. I know one of them, but like, this is a series they should win, and I almost wonder if Schwarber is going to be able to play. But go ahead and just talk about your thoughts on the offense real quick.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you about that team slump when you face pitchers of this caliber. Mm-hmm. So I completely agree with your take there. My take's a little bit on the other side. It's that the first game we win with some great defensive plays. Vierling, Bohm. And like you said, we win something that feels like a playoff game. Uh-huh. Game number 2, and this might just be a little personal for me, but I thought this was a really big spot for Nola.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You're up against Jacob deGrom. You're away against the team who's leading your division and has been absolutely pounding you for this entire season. And you don't outduel deGrom. But deGrom only goes 6 innings. Nola goes 8. Still 1-run baseball. And I think, and a lot of people said this, so this is nothing new, but I think to see that performance from Aaron Nola was a really big thing for me personally, and I hope for a lot of other Phillies fans. And I think, so the third thing I'll say is to go back to the offensive side of it. I think you're absolutely right. When you face pitchers like this, you can get in a team slump. And I think the Phillies are specifically prone to it because the number of guys who who don't face this kind of gauntlet of pitching and haven't. Like, I know Bohm's been around for a little bit, but Stott, Vierling, Sosa, Marsh, these guys have not faced. And by the way, Bryson Stott against Max Scherzer, like, good Lord.
Yeah, he
so
owns him.
maybe take away him for that particular game. But as a team, you would think that guys like Schwarber, Segura, Castellanos, JT, if you're just talking about active guys, would be the guys you could look at to kind of stand up in front of those pitchers and give advice, kind of get the offense to be hot again, pick them back up. You don't have Schwarber against Scherzer and deGrom. Plays an unbelievable game against Alcantara. So he's proven himself there. Segura just coming back from injury. I am not going to expect Gene Segura to be ready to hit against Alcantara, Scherzer, and Jacob deGrom. I'm just not going to.
Although Segura got it started on
he did.
On Wednesday
You're right.
night.
But
the little nubber.
But again, he's not like rocketing the baseball around the field. So again, another guy just coming back from injury who you would expect to be one of those guys who would have good at bats against these pitchers. He's not afraid to face these guys. Castellanos kind of reverted back to his ways from a month ago. And then JT is just so up and down. Again, we know he's been hot, but it is what it is. But I'm going to put up my thumb for the people watching because it's the biggest. Bryce Harper eats Max Scherzer alive. Bryce Harper is a lefty against a righty Jacob deGrom. I'm not saying that he goes 4 for 4 with 3 home runs or anything like that. But you're missing your catalyst. You're missing your guy in your lineup who gets 2 or 3 hits and shows you that these guys aren't gods, that it's possible to beat these guys. Like you said, they had 10 hits off Scherzer, 11 hits off Scherzer, which doesn't happen a lot. Again, they didn't convert, but that's where you expect a guy like Bryce Harper to come up. You expect a guy, I know Stott hit a little bit against Scherzer, but again, like you said, we were talking before we got started. He comes up in big situations against deGrom and in the game yesterday, or today, excuse me, where it should have been Schwarber in that leadoff spot. So I think while you're absolutely right, these pitchers like this can cause teams to go into team slumps. I think that you made a great point about Topper. These haven't lasted as long as with Girardi. They've been able to turn it around and figure out how to win some games, and a bunch of games put together after something like this. Right. And I just think that if this had happened with a healthy Bryce, a more ready to hit Gene, and Kyle Schwarber, yeah, and Kyle Schwarber in the lineup, I think you could take a little bit more away from it. If you had told me that Schwarber's not going to play, and we have a Gene coming off an injury, Harper's not in the lineup, and we beat Max Scherzer in a 3-game, in a Met series, and Aaron Nola went 8 innings of 1-run baseball, I'm cool. I'm good with it. There's not a ton more for me to take away negatively. And I hope that the trend continues with these things are going to happen, but this team has found a way to then bounce back and win a bunch of games in a row. So if they can, I know this is part of what we want to talk about next, is that if they can go and take 3 from the Reds, because they should, like you said, we don't know the names of the people starting against them. So it's a great way to bounce back again after facing those kind of pitchers. And then if you come back and split the series with the Mets again in New York, I think it's a big deal. Is where I'm getting at.
No, I agree with you, and I think well, let's talk about that, because you have 3 games, you have 7 games coming up with the Reds here in the next week next week and a half. 3 of those in Philly, or no, I'm sorry, they're in Cincinnati here, starting tomorrow night, and you know they're facing. Tomorrow night's the only guy I do know, Mike Minor, 34-year-old lefty. I think, I'm pretty sure my brother loves Mike Minor, by the way. But the guy's 1-9 this year with a 6.5 ERA. Like, you've got to get to him tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then they face. I have no idea who this is. I literally TJ Zook. I don't know.
Sorry, TJ.
0-1 with a 13.5 ERA.
Well, there you go.
And then a lefty named Nick Lodolo. He's young though. 3-4 with 4.72. And we go Syndergaard, Gibson, Suarez. They need to sweep this series, Regs.
Yes.
They have to. They absolutely have to sweep this series. They have to come right back and do what you're supposed to do and do what they've been doing against bad teams. Because here's what's going on around them. Right now, they're basically percentage points behind San Diego. Well, you win tomorrow, you can pretty much write home that you're going to jump them, because Alcantara is pitching for Miami tomorrow. So, and San Diego's traveling across country. They have to play on the East Coast, which also means that I would think that Cabrera is pitching on Tuesday for Miami. So they have 2 really tough pitching matchups back to back. San Diego, as we saw with Cabrera, that kid's good.
Yeah,
he's really good. Miami, they always have these young arms, so you can re-jump San Diego pretty quickly if you do what you should do. You should at least be again
and
battling
now,
those percentage
Tatis
points.
being out the rest of the season.
Correct. It's huge. Colorado plays St. Louis, so I'd assume St. Louis is St. Louis is in first place in the Central right now, so you're really focused on, and they play Milwaukee a ton more times. As a matter of fact, if the season ended today, the Phillies would be playing at St. Louis in the playoffs, and I love that playoff matchup for the Phillies, by the way. Love that playoff matchup.
We'll get there.
Milwaukee's playing the Dodgers at home, so I do think LA's just there's just such a tough matchup for everybody. So
I read to you the run differential.
It's
plus 247.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're just ridiculous.
I didn't good Lord.
But they if you do what you should do against Cincinnati, you could be holding 4+ games on Milwaukee by the end of the week. Yep. And then Atlanta and New York. And I just looked at the pitching matchups, Regs. You ready for what Atlanta's seeing this week?
I am.
Carrasco tomorrow.
Okay.
Taijuan Walker on Tuesday. Max Scherzer on Wednesday. Jacob deGrom on Thursday. I like that. There's a couple pieces to this. The Phillies are 4 games out in the loss column right now to the Braves. So that could easily look differently by the end of the week if the Mets continue to play the way they're playing. But more importantly, the Phillies will not see Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom this weekend.
Really? You looked it up?
They pitch Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah. All right.
So they will not, unless they decide to hold deGrom out on Thursday. They could absolutely do that and save him for the weekend. But I almost think they're going to want to get more separation from the Braves. I don't think they're as worried about the Phillies right now.
I would agree.
They're 11 games up on the Phillies right now.
Yeah, I don't listen. As much as we want them to be worried, they're not.
No, they're 11 games up. They don't. The Phillies could sweep them next weekend, and they still hold 7 games, and we don't play them anymore.
Right.
So after this coming weekend, the Mets and the Phillies are done. So I think the Mets need to concern themselves with, we need to put length between us and the Braves and just bury the Braves right now.
Yep.
And in order to do that, you want Scherzer and DeGrom to pitch.
Absolutely.
So what it looks like this weekend for the Phillies is Bassett will pitch Friday. Freaking A, that guy. Carrasco will likely pitch game one of the doubleheader on Saturday. Then they'll go bullpen game on Saturday evening, I'd assume. The Phillies look to be going falter in that game. And then Taijuan Walker on Sunday that will be at. So those pitching matchups actually, they look good for the Phillies because you'll get Wheeler and Nola.
Yeah.
Both. You'll get Nola on Friday against Bassett, and you'll get Wheeler
game one, right?
Game one of the doubleheader. Then you'll have Falter in game two. And we'll see Syndergaard on Sunday against Walker. So I like those matchups for the Phillies, especially games 1 and 2. And I think you'll see a little bit of electricity, especially if the Phillies sweep the Reds coming into it. So a couple of just quick notes on the Phillies before we move into the Phixated. You mentioned Harper, and his return. He's taking batting practice on the field tomorrow.
Yep, I saw that.
That's big. And then they'll do some machine work to see how he responds to
the high-speed machines. Yep.
The high-speed machines to see how his hand responds. And then they're talking about Lehigh Valley immediately after that. So if all goes well, he could be in Lehigh Valley this weekend at the earliest.
Yeah.
That's probably pushing it a little bit. I think they'll see how he responds Tuesday to the BP tomorrow. High-speed machines on Wednesday. See how he responds on Thursday. And then AAA potentially Friday or Saturday. And Regs, that means where would it be? It would be the home series because they're going to want him to come back at home. Could be the home series next Monday against Cincinnati. I don't see him coming back on the road in Arizona.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I could see either the Cincinnati series or the Pittsburgh series at home. He could be back, and oh my goodness, can you imagine, Regs? What that place is going to be like when he's back?
I can't wait.
And just the other piece of news, how about the kids getting the move to AA?
That's right.
Holy moly. Right. All three of their top pitching prospects, McGarry, Abel, and Painter, all in AA. They were going to start next year there, so now you get them an extra month of development in AA. That's I got to tell you, Andrew Painter getting moved this quickly through the system.
He's been on fire. Regs,
he's been in 5 months. He's pitched at 3 levels. Like that is unheard of.
Yeah.
Not just like in any major leaguer, or any minor leaguer. You don't ever see guys jump levels like that.
Yeah.
The more we hear about Andrew Painter, the more I think that he has potential to be here next year, the middle of or end of next year, as a 20-year-old,
that's wild.
A 20-year-old kid, which means we could have 10 years of Andrew Painter, in a Phillies uniform, which is, I am so excited for him, dude. I think he's so special. I think he's so special. Just effortlessly 99 miles an hour after 99 miles an hour. Effortlessly. So, all good news on that front. I know Phillies fans, listen, before I move into the Phixated, I know what these last 2 days felt like for everybody. I get it. I totally get it. But if you take note in the first 2 games of this series, the Phillies can compete, and that Zach Wheeler start is not your typical Zach Wheeler start.
Yeah.
So you competed with the 2 guys that you'd be going into a playoff series with, Suarez and Nola, because that's going to be your game 2, game 3 right there.
Yep.
And Zach Wheeler is a game 1 starter. Today just got away. That inning just got away.
Yeah.
It just got away. And those happen. I've said it a couple times over the last few days. Like, it stinks to lose baseball games. It stinks, especially when you start to get used to winning again.
Yeah.
It's hard to lose. But it's inevitable. You're going to lose in baseball.
Mhm.
It's just the law of averages. You're going to lose. So tip your cap to the Phillies. They've had a really nice run the last few weeks. Topper's team has not let us down this year when it comes to bouncing back.
Right.
So hopefully they're on their way to Cincinnati right now. Hopefully we get Schwarber back in the lineup tomorrow. Certainly a big deal if we do. And, they flip a switch back on and jump all over this Reds team that's just not very good.
That's right.
So here's the hope. And when we talk on Thursday, I think, we'll be in a better mood. Regs, real quick, Phixated.
Let's do
I
it.
was going to do this one last week. So you were at the game, the 1980
Yep.
honorary game. Did you enjoy it? Like, was it cool?
So again, I was excited to see a few guys just because obviously 80 was 7 years before I was even born.
Sure.
So I was much more into when a couple of the 93 guys came out beforehand.
Yeah.
Before they honored the 80 team. I will say the stadium was hyped for a lot of guys from that 80 team.
Yeah.
So I think while I missed that boat, there were plenty of people there who were very excited to see guys from that team.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. I grew up on obviously I grew up on Phillies baseball, but the only winning baseball I knew before 93 was watching the 1980 World Series tape over and over and over and over again. So, there are a couple of just tremendous moments from those teams. And I could hear the ovations on television for Luzinski and, even when they announced guys who couldn't be there, some of those ovations for like Gary Maddox, were pretty special. Guys like Schmitty, who unfortunately had COVID when that day he tested positive. Larry Boa jogging out on the field. Like, are you kidding me? Like the guy looks like he could still play.
That
was just jogging
awesome.
out there. And they gave him so much grief for that in the booth.
Yeah.
He and Luzinski are they're a comedy act, the two of them. And then there was the inevitable Pete Rose moment, huh?
People went nuts.
Yeah, there were some boos smattered in, but it was not
It was not a lot.
It was not a lot, not as much as you would think, huh?
No, it was not.
But so let me preface this with I'm a guy who believes he should be in the Hall. I'm gonna preface that right away. Over my right shoulder, there's an autographed picture of Pete Rose from when I met him in Cooperstown a couple of years ago. And even just knowing that he's not a great person, standing in the presence of a guy that had 4,000 hits, is absolutely unreal. Like it's unreal. And I always say this about the Hall of Fame, and it is not the Hall of good guys. Like there are plenty of bad dudes in the Hall of Fame for a variety of reasons, just guys who just weren't good people for different reasons. And I'm not there to be the, ethics police. Like that's not who I am. When I go to this Hall of Greatness, like I want to see the players who are the best at their sport and, were the best at certain things. Like Ricky Henderson, probably not the greatest of guys. But I love Ricky Henderson because I wanted to be Ricky Henderson. Like I stole bases because of Ricky Henderson. And Pete Rose is that for me too. Like he's a dude who just hit. And yeah, I think he belongs in the Hall. I don't know that there are many people that don't think he belongs in the Hall. And if you do, then okay, we can have that conversation. But here's what I will tell you. There was a lot that came out a few years back about him sexually harassing women. And there was a lot of pushback from the fan base when he was asked to return for the 1980 celebration. And, usually the Phillies get these things right, Regs. Like they usually do a pretty good job of getting this right. And I don't know that I was anti him being there. I don't think I really was either way. I think I was cool with him being there. I think I probably would have done a little more preventative damage control than what they did that last weekend. You know, they made him available to the media, and you knew that was going to happen. But our girl asked him a very fair question, and his response was not great.
No.
You know, maybe if you're being asked a question by a female about the alleged sexual harassment charges against you, you might not want to refer to her as babe.
Jesus.
I just a thought, Pete. Like, just a thought. You might want to be a little respectful. And maybe the Phillies should have gotten out in front of that and just coached him up a little bit. Now, that being said, Pete Rose is Pete Rose, and he's going to do whatever Pete Rose wants to do. There's no doubt about that. He's always been that way. It's why he's in the position he's in, because he thinks he can do whatever he wants to do. But that moment wasn't great. It wasn't great. And when it was brought back around, he gave a pretty similar answer to the person who brought it back around to him, that he wasn't there to talk about it. The guy wasn't even alive when he was being accused of doing it, and he's there to celebrate for the city, for the fans, for his teammates. His teammates all seemed to enjoy him being there. And then came Pete Rose in the broadcast booth. Regs, what are the Phillies doing? I would have been fine without Pete Rose being in the broadcast booth. I've been fine. I didn't need Pete Rose in the broadcast booth. I mean, for John Kruk to go speechless because of something Pete Rose said tells you all you need to know. I'm not going to repeat what he said. For those of you that want to know what he said, just type in Pete Rose Phillies broadcast on Twitter. You will find plenty of moments. There were at least 4 cringe-worthy moments in the one inning that man was in the booth. And again, I always say the Phillies get these things right, but my goodness, did they strike out with the way they handled it. He should have walked on the field, waved his cap to the fans, and that is it. Like, that is it. Shouldn't have been in front of the media. And if he was, he should have had someone standing there to whisper in his ear what the heck to say. And he shouldn't have been in the booth. They could have eliminated the booth. They had to do damage control and bring Jimmy Rollins and Sargent immediately after that, just to make it PG again. Like, Regs, it was so bad. I was texting you everything he was saying. I could not believe what this man was saying in the booth on live TV. Like, unbelievable. So, kind of fixated on 2 pieces of Pete Rose. I'm not going to go super far into the Hall of Fame thing. I've said my piece on Pete Rose being in the Hall of Fame. I will go to the other side of Phillies. Like, this could have been better. You could have done this better by limiting his ability to speak to the droves of Philly fans out there. Oh man, dude, what were they doing?
Yeah. It was stupid. Listen, again, I'm not gonna go too much because this is you're fixated, but like, it was stupid. Don't put that man in a broadcast booth. It's not that hard. You have plenty of other guys.
Dude, everybody. And I don't know what their thought process was. I don't know if it was, well, we can't not put Pete in because we put everybody else in. No, you can certainly not put Pete in. You certainly do not have to put him in.
No, you don't.
He did not have to be there. He didn't.
They didn't handle this whole thing well.
If you wanted him to go and tip his little cap to the fans,
fine,
and wave and get his standing ovation,
fine,
whatever.
Yep.
You did not have to sit the man in the booth and have him curse 4 different times on live TV. Again, John Kruk going completely silent is all you need to know. Poor Tom McCarthy. The guy was trying his best.
I know.
He was trying so hard to just keep everything under control, and there's just no keeping Pete Rose under control.
There was a really good article, I think, in the Inquirer, and I can't remember who it was by, and I'll find it and we'll put it, maybe we'll retweet it. But it essentially talked about Rose and how mishandled the entire situation was. So we'll find it and we'll tweet it out. So that it was a great read. It was a really good, didn't come from a place of, it didn't seem like it came from a guy who hates Pete Rose. It just really spoke to what happened.
Yeah. And that's,
in
I
all
think
the
that's
situations.
The stuff with women, you know how I feel about that. Like, as a baseball player, though, the guy, there's just no denying what he was, but he's just a bad human
Shout
being.
out Alex Coffey. You're still the best.
You know what, Alex? You know what we're going to do? Thursday's an off day. It feels only right. I'm getting her on.
Let's do it.
Let's see if we can get Alex on the show on Thursday.
The greatest follow of the year for me.
She is incredible.
The single greatest follow of the entire year for me.
She is absolutely incredible. You bringing her into my world of following Philly sports, Regs, she is absolutely phenomenal.
So good.
What she does. She is truly not just a great follow on Twitter, but if you read her stuff,
oh yeah,
I mean, she is an unbelievably talented writer, and like we are really, really fortunate to have her.
And that family is ridiculous. Her sister just made the women's national team for soccer.
Did she really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Well, Alex, you got to get on the show.
Yeah. And her dad's like an award-winning writer also.
When you tweet the show tomorrow, get her on there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get her on there. Let's get her in here. Get her on for, a little bit. We'll talk about the series with the Mets with her. Alex, if you tune in to the end of this episode, we want you on the show. You're an amazing, amazing addition to the Phillies beat, and we're so pumped that you're there because we've really enjoyed following her for sure. So
all right.
Hopefully we can get her on the show, man. That would be a blast. Listen, it's an off day on Thursday.
We'll do what we do.
I'm just saying.
We'll do what we do.
I'm just saying. I say we go big. Let's get Alex on the show.
Why not?
All right. Let's do it. All right, everybody. Hey, we want to say thanks as always for giving us an hour of your time listening to us banter back and forth about Eagles football, Phillies baseball. We hope that you click subscribe here right below us on the YouTube channel. Make sure that you follow us on the Facebook page. It's the Phixated fan page, both with the PH. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow the platform at Birdies and Beer, at B&B Podcast, right, Reg?
Yep.
That's it.
That's right.
Yep. And that's the one I always get tripped up on, man. And then follow us at the Phixated Pod. You can follow me at the Mic Drop 5, and you can follow Regs at Big Regs with a Z. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't worry about the Phillies. They're going to be fine. Take a deep breath. It's a good baseball team in New York. I know that's hard for us to admit, but that's a really good team, and they competed 2 straight days, and today was just one of those days that nothing went right. Hopefully they turn around in Cincinnati. We thank each and every one of you for listening. We appreciate all of you. We love you. Be safe. Be kind to someone. Take care. And Alex, we'll see you on Thursday.
Have a good night. # we love you, Alex.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.